Welcome to Work of Art, where character arcs meet screenwriting craft. I am your host, LB, and in our first episode, we are breaking down Rocky 4. As an aspiring screenwriter, I wanted a show not just to break down the movies we love, but to explore the decisions made by the writers through an analysis of character arcs. Now, look, art is subjective, so I'm not here to criticize anyone's decision. If there's a movie I just didn't like, I probably won't talk about it. Now, that doesn't mean I won't provide my own spin and suggestions for what I believe could have elevated the character's arc and the story overall. Now, some of these decisions we get to see on screen are not always that of the writer, and we'll see some of that in this very first episode. I'm excited you're coming along for this journey with me. Now, let's get into Rocky 4. As we'll do with each of these episodes, we start with the setup. So Rocky 4 is the fourth film in the franchise. This film was released nationwide 40 years ago today, November 27th. Happy Thanksgiving in America. It was written by Sylvester Stallone. The film made $300 million in 1985. That's crazy. The film picks up from the end of Rocky 3, also known as the best Rocky movie, where he defeats Clubber Lang to become a two-time world champion. He's got everything he ever wanted and appears content, something our friend Apollo Creed can't seem to subscribe to. Apollo's need for validation compels him to take on Ivan Drago, played by Dolph Lundgren, in an exhibition fight with Rocky in his corner. In a reverse of how Rocky took Clubber Lang lately in the third film, Apollo makes the same mistake with Drago. Unfortunately, Mick isn't here to die, and they don't kill Paulie, though I wish they did. Instead, Drago kills Apollo in the middle of the ring. This happens when Rocky decides not to throw in the towel to stop the fight, following his friend's wish. Fueled by revenge, Rocky, the heavyweight champion of the world, #1 boxer in the sport, forfeits his titles and agrees to go to Russia and fight Drago for no money. More on this later. Adrian learns about this as if she's a guy finding out they're no longer in a relationship because someone updated their status on Facebook, when all the reporters mob the compound and let her know that, hey, your husband's going to Russia. We get the infamous, "You can't win" line from Adrian, and Rocky leaves with Paulie and Duke, Apollo's trainer, to Russia. We get the first of 2 dual training montages, and Rocky tries to do it on his own. Then Adrian shows up out of nowhere. They make up, then montage 2 starts, and Rocky is fully back. We move to the big fight, where Rocky overcomes and wins in the end. While this movie does have a message about identity and what it means to find purpose, I remember this movie as one that proved that the American spirit triumphs over all. Rocky trains in the snow and in a barn with no weights or real equipment. Drago's using technology, sports science, and steroids, but that's not good enough to beat the old American toughness. The arc we'll be examining today is that of Rocky Balboa. And so we start for our next segment, the starting point. So who is Rocky when the story begins? Well, he's the man. He has a big house, the love of his life, a son, his best friend, and all the money he'll ever need. For now. He does not need to fight and really doesn't want to. The guy who started this franchise as an enforcer is now sparring for fun to appease his friend. Now, this appeasement happens to come from his biggest flaw, which is an undying loyalty to those who show him love. He spars with Apollo, even though he doesn't want to. He puts up with Paulie and his nonsense, and it's this flaw that brings about our inciting incident in the script. So, when Adrian becomes frustrated at the idea of Apollo taking the fight with Drago, and includes Rocky as someone who should consider giving it all up, Apollo convinces Rocky that they're warriors and they're meant to be in that ring. Rocky is content where he is, but he feels like he owes it to his friend. This is what leads to him not throwing in the towel, hence our inciting incident. Not because he's dumb or slow to react, but because Apollo explicitly asks him not to do it. So as we move into Rocky's journey throughout this film, we're going to again start with that inciting incident, which is, of course, the lethal shot from Drago. Rocky feels that he has no other choice after this but to go out and avenge Apollo. This is what pushes him forward, and because of his identity, there's no chance he could ever let it go. In Act 2, we see Rocky risking everything, family, fortune, and his own life for a chance at vengeance. One element of this part of the story that I've questioned is whether he is intentionally not working with Duke and Paulie because of his anger or depression, or is this his subconscious way of protecting them? The last two men who he cared about and who helped him both died, right? That's Mick and Apollo. Now, not to jump ahead to upcoming segments, but this is an element I wish was elevated more. Our midpoint occurs when Adrian and Rocky reconnect. It's short, but provides the tonal shift in the story for Rocky to utilize his support system and no longer want to solely fight for revenge. Sly, listen to me. I write a few scripts, make a YouTube video, and I'm calling the man Sly. Mm-mm. Mr. Stallone does a great job of utilizing the dual montage to illustrate the lengths both men are going through to prepare, while also raising the stakes or elements of danger for Rocky, as, again, this is where we see in montage 2 that Drago's on steroids. The final battle tests Rocky's resolve, and him being in Russia is another way to raise the stakes. He's not going to be the favorite or be cheered by an adoring public. He has to earn everything in that ring, including the fans' respect. The climax sees him knock Drago out in the 15th round. The crowd cheers and celebrates Rocky's perseverance. So our next segment is called the transformation. This segment is called the transformation because we're going to determine whether the character progressed, regressed, or remained stagnant. Now, I feel that franchises require a longer look in terms of a character's transformation. Rocky, from the start of this movie to the end, did grow in that his understanding of self and what is important appears to have shifted in a satisfying way. The real transformation is from who he was at the beginning of Rocky, the first Rocky, to where he ends up at the end of the Creed movies. Now, in each film, incremental steps are taken to move this character forward, but in my opinion, you would need to watch all the films to best witness the transformation. Next, we have the writer's lens. This is my take as a screenwriter, as amateur as I am, on why this arc works or doesn't. So, unfortunately, the overall arc didn't really work for me. I enjoyed the film, don't get me wrong. But this arc needed more moments of introspection and connection, primarily between Rocky and Adrian. In a version of the script I found, Adrian was way more involved early on. I mentioned at the top how what we see is not always the writer's full vision, and Stallone had scenes where Adrian talked with Rocky about Apollo's identity crisis and being unable to let it go. This eventually became the scene where Rocky and Apollo watch their old fight, and Rocky tells him that, "Hey, maybe you're fighting yourself," right? But having that prior chat with Adrian to show that he does listen to her and that her words and feelings weigh on him will make her presence more positive and make it all the more gut-wrenching when he chooses to leave her to go fight Drago. Similarly, a few moments in the first montage showing Rocky unable to train properly or being too preoccupied with, thoughts of his family would have made the moment where Adrian show up more of a triumph, just in my humble opinion. So we have a couple of recurring segments for you all. The first one is called Scene Stealer. So in Scene Stealer, we highlight a single scene that best defines a character's arc. For me, it's when Rock is getting in the limo or the car to go to Russia and he stops to look up at Adrian. Now, no words are spoken. It's a very cinematic moment in the film, and it showcases the second thoughts about leaving his family and going on this crusade before ultimately pressing forward to do what must be done. Rocky gets the crap kicked out of him in every movie. Technically speaking, he's probably one of the worst boxers of all time, But he pushes forward even when I'm sure he wants to stop and just walk away with his wife. This scene is our scene stealer for today because it perfectly encapsulates that moving forward and for this film. Our next segment is called Side Character Spotlight. We didn't talk much about this character, which is crazy, but Drago is the subject of our spotlight. He's a fearsome antagonist for Rocky and unbelievably memorable. That said, it is a bit of Darth Vader vibes with him. He's this force of destruction. We see him do damage early on in the film. Everyone's afraid, and then he loses in the end. The movie doesn't spend a lot of time with him outside of training. If given the time and space, I feel that the movie could have been even more compelling if we saw his handler, Koloff, maybe mistreating him. Perhaps his wife, played by Brigitte Nielsen, is more vindictive, and it becomes clear that Ivan, even, is more of a pawn. That would make, the part during the fight where he grabs Koloff by the neck and throws him even more powerful. When he says that he fights for himself in the film, it feels like a shock because there weren't many indications that he was being forced to do this or that he was unhappy with his situation. You know, so shining a light on Drago in this moment, I feel like could have really helped elevate the film. So we have some awards to pass out. These will be quick hitters. First is Best Glow Up. It was a tie between Rocky's beard when he's training, which looks fantastic, and the female robot. I have no idea who voices the female robot. I tried to find it, could not. Questionable life choices. Not taking money for the fight is bananas. I don't understand it. I don't know how that was even allowed. It's very irresponsible. You saw this man kill Apollo. So you gave up your titles and you're going to go to Russia, fight this man, could die, and get nothing to leave or give back to your family. That's not okay. Bad job by Rocky. But he makes a lot of irresponsible decisions, such as making, spoiler alert, Paulie his manager, who is terrible with money, as we'll find out in the next film, where apparently an hour and a half after this fight, we realize, oh no, Paulie made a lot of bad investments and now Rocky is broke. So, terrible life choices. And number 3 on our list of life choices, or questionable life choices, that is, would be both parents just kind of left Rocky Jr. at home with a robot on Christmas. Whether you celebrate Christmas or not, I mean, Rocky could have died, so he's gone to Russia. Adrian could have been stuck in Russia, and they just left their young child at home alone with no adults and a robot. I just don't get it. That seems wild to me. So those will be our questionable life choices for this episode. Now, our next segment is called Arc That Should Have Been in Therapy. And for this one, I'm going to go right back to their son, Rocky Jr. He's way too chill about his dad maybe getting killed. For instance, when Rocky tells him, hey, I'm going to fight, and they had this little talking in Rocky Jr.'s bedroom, and Rocky Jr.'s like, oh, I don't know, I would run the other way, just kind of like being playful about it. A little bit too chill. I don't know about you all, but like I have a daughter who I love dearly. And whenever I even look like I'm sick or I'm coughing or sneezing, she immediately gets sad and like, oh no, what's wrong? And like wants to take care of me. This kid's just like, oh, that's hilarious. Uncle Apollo died and you're going to go fight this guy? All right, well, good luck. I got the robot. I'm going to have some friends come over on Christmas. It's just absurd. That kid needed some therapy. Someone should have probably thought about how to better present him as being more concerned. I mean, this kid grows up to become the dad from This Is Us. Oh my gosh, Jack from This Is Us. Like, we got to do better. All right. So now we move on to our next segment called The Rewrite. This is a quick, if I were writing this, I'd do X. And the X this time will be, I will show him not being able to train without Adrian. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but this is written where she kind of swallows her pain and just like shows up for him. It would have been really cool if maybe Paulie was actually the one who reached out and knows like, okay, Rocky's struggling. and wrote to his sister because they seem to have a very strained relationship themselves. And then her showing up would kind of help it where now, you know, we see like, oh, he needs her to be the best version of himself. Again, they do that in this film. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but just making it more, apparent to the audience. And again, I just like the detail of, maybe Paulie's noticing Rocky frustrated outside and we see him writing or making a call. And it's like, what is he doing? And then when Adrian shows up and they reconnect, maybe even Paulie standing on the steps. Again, I don't like Paulie as a character. He's very annoying, but these are things that could have been done, in my opinion, that could have been like, wow, okay, Paulie's showing some growth. And all right, now they really are a family unit, and together they're unstoppable. And I feel like that would have been awesome. We just spoke about Drago, but a small scene, in addition to the potential like mistreatment or whatever. What if he and Rocky had like a little chat before the fight, right? I think that could have done wonders for the psychology of their big match and for the story. Can you imagine if like Rocky just forgave him and that kind of like was playing in Drago's mind? So he started out the fight really slowly and, he was unsure of how to process this new information. And maybe that's when Koloff comes down and gets tossed and, Drago's like, I fight for me. And then they just have this battle of wills going back and forth. And maybe there's like little moments in the corner where each of them is sharing their views of how they're trying to process and move forward. Again, maybe that makes this more of an artistic film or what have you, but it's just something I would have considered. Well, wow, that's our show for this month. I really hope you liked it. Please take our poll on whether the arc landed or fell flat with you. Please like, share, and subscribe. I enjoyed putting this together and can't wait to break down another arc with you on the Work of Arc show. I've been your host, LB. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all next time.